Welcome back on the AM show. We get into our very first big story and we'll take you to Parliament. Now, some interesting action has been going down there. The first having to do with the president's nominees for ministerial and deputy ministerial positions and some of those disagreements between the caucuses in Parliament. We'll be bringing you the scoop on that, even as we delve into other happenings in Parliament as well. You know, those three bills or levies, taxes, have been brought to the fore in Parliament. Yesterday, we spent quite some time deliberating on those. We'll be bringing you the details of what exactly has been transpiring and what we can expect on those bills moving forward as Parliament reconvenes today. But joining me for those conversations, we have joining via Zoom, Collins Adoma-Komensa. He's Member of Parliament, Ifija Kwabre North. We also have Murtala Mohammed, Member of Parliament for Tamale Central. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Whom am I hearing for now?
This is Collins Adoma-Komensa.
Well, the sound, I do not know. I believe it's from my end. It's not the best. Who are speaking?
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning. I believe that is Murtala.
Yes.
Okay, I'd appreciate it if you could speak up a little for me. Can I hear Collins once more?
Good morning.
Collins, good morning. Good to have you.
Good to have you too.
Let's start as we usually do from your constituencies. I'd just like a sneak peek on what you've been up to there. I always like to be consistent with this so we can know when, what is happening in those constituencies, what help you need, and how you're shaping the lives of your constituents. So I'll start with you, Collins. How is Ifija Kwabre North as of today? What's the latest you can share with us?
Well, as of today, this morning, I just got off the phone with the chairman of the constituency, and everything seems to be okay at the constituency today. Interestingly, I was supposed to be at the constituency this morning for the official commissioning or handing over of the district courts that has been constructed by this government, and the guest of honor will be the Chief Justice himself. If you recall, as part of efforts to decentralize the legal system, the government decided to build courts, district courts, in almost every district in Ghana. And today, there's supposed to be a commissioning in my constituency where the Chief Justice and other justices of the courts will be present. And so, unfortunately, because of today's program, I'm unable to join them. I've communicated same to the Chief Executive, District Chief Executive. And so today, it's a happy day in my constituency. Last week, I was at the constituency also to cut sword for the commencement of construction of an AstroTurf, which is being funded by the Ghana Gas Company. And I do a proposal somewhere February last year, and I've been following up on it until about 3 weeks ago when I got a positive feedback from the Ghana Gas Company. And so there was sword cutting.
So the Ghana Gas Company is funding the AstroTurf?
It's funding the AstroTurf. But as I said, you have to push for it. So I took a proposal there seeking the assistance to have it constructed. Unfortunately, I got a positive feedback 3 weeks ago. So last week I was there to cut sword for the official commencement of the project. Interestingly, immediately after the sword cutting, the contractor started work. And I'm told that he's been able to grade the place, and the work is ongoing. We hope to complete that particular project in the next 6 months or so. This is what the contractor tells me. On the side of education, as you know, the last time we spoke, as part of my efforts to bring up the level of education within my constituency, I decided to sponsor students from the secondary school level to any of the tertiary institutions. For the past 2.5 years since I started, the last count, I have about 150 people who have benefited from this program. Again, when it comes to the JSS level, which is the junior level, every year I sponsor what we call Meet the Examiners, and I try to bring very known examiners from Kumasi and Accra to take the students through how to even answer the questions. And it is paid off. The last result that came is the best we've had in the constituency, with 15 of our best students getting grades between grade 6 and grade 12, which is not very normal in a place like where I come from, the Yakwabre North constituency. So by and large, it's been very, very good, positive feedback. Of course, as we always say, Oliver will always ask for more. There's a bridge in my constituency that collapsed some few months ago, and I must commend the road minister for swiftly having his men to come there, have a look at it, and construction has started. However, for the past 2 months, I realized construction has stalled. I've continuously followed it up, and I'm hoping that hopefully by the next week or early next month, we should have contractors back on site to complete the process for me. I have two major problems. I have two major road network in my constituency. The one from a town called Ahinkro to Tutere, fortunately was tarred before the election, but there's one at the Kwabre side, which is from Akom through Kwantakese all the way to a town we call PPP, Penchen Pampetia Patase. That one is still not in good shape, and I'm hoping that that will be tackled for me. So at constituency is cool. My primaries, as you know, we've not settled on a date. And so we put that on hold as of now. We are concentrating on our work until the party officially opens nomination or set date for that election to be done. I'm not too sure if anybody wants to contest me, but if anybody wants to...
You're not sure whether anybody would want to contest you?
Yes, that's the beauty of our democracy. I contested someone, and so I wouldn't mind to have somebody contest me. What is important is for the people to know what I've done, and on the basis of which I believe they will renew my mandate.
Thank you for that update that you've given us for what you've been doing in your constituency. Let me now hear from Murtala. For you, I know there's quite a lot you do, education and other in other aspects of endeavor. What have you been up to?
Well, good morning, and good morning to my brother on the other side, and good morning to your cherished viewers and listeners, and most importantly, the good people.
Murtala, I don't know whether we caught you at a bad time of morning, but
no, I'm fine. I'm fine. My voice is not that audible, right?
It's not that audible.
Oh, okay. So is it okay now?
I think we'll manage with it. Do go ahead. I know you to be ferocious when you want to be. So
I was just greeting your viewing public and my brother over there, and also the good people of Tamale Central. You know that we've just finished filing for the purposes of the NDC parliamentary primary. And I filed last Thursday, and by the will of Allah, I am going unopposed. There was only one person who attempted to contest me, but I, at that time, as I stated, that I considered it a joke because of some of the work we did, and the fact that the person was finding it extremely difficult to get even endorsement. And I never spoke with anyone not to endorse, because the people are profoundly appreciative of the kind of, work that we have done. Mind you, Tamale Central is one of the elitist constituencies in Ghana. I mean, it is the constituency I have seen a lot of branch executives having their second degree. Some are doing PhDs, and they agree to be branch executive of the party. And it tells you the quality of representation in the constituency from the branch level to the MP they have. And therefore, they know what they want, and they understand the legislative responsibilities and what they expect from their MP. Just to reiterate some of the things we have done, and I believe for which reason, by the will of Allah, I was honored as the social change MP in the 5 northern regions of the country. First and foremost, when I became the member of parliament, before I contested the elections, as a development planner by profession, I identified the challenges confronting the constituency and the possible ways by which those challenges could be surmounted. And I realized that education, and before I did so, I had interactions with those agencies that are dealing with some of those issues. One, the Metropolitan Education Directorate, the Metropolitan, Health Directorate. I had some interactions with them, and it was very clear that when students within the Tamale Metro write the BECE, considering it as the Metropolitan Assembly, yet students who are coming from the district perform better than the students in Tamale Metro. For the past, they said at that time, the past 10 years. So I sat down with them to find out how we could all find solutions to it. And the explanation they gave was that if we could organize free extra classes for them and some motivation. So I organized free extra classes at 4 centers. Those who know Tamale, one was at Kulikuli School, the school I attended. It's supposed to be Methodist Primary and Presby Primary, all located on the same compound, but we call it Kulikuli School. One at St. Peter's Primary, one at Sakasaka Primary, and in fact, Sakasaka Primary is one of the schools the current incompetent vice president attended. Wisi Pratt also attended same school, and Carlos Ahenkra attended Sakasaka.
Your good friend Carlos Ahenkra.
Yeah, Carlos, yes, he's in both of Parliament. He attended, Sakasaka Primary. Carlos, in fact, grew up in Tamale, just like Comrade Wisi Pratt, and also one at Nobiscora. So we had these classes. I got teachers who were teaching them intensively for 6 months. And then after that, I provided mathematical set for each student and provided TNT and feeding for the 5 days they were engaged in the exam. In fact, the information I got from the Metro Education Directorate was that the average pass within the city was always 32.3%. That year when we did the classes and the results came, it rose from the 32.3% to 50.9%. Last year we did again, and I'm told that it's over 60%. I'm yet to be finished with the specific percentage, but the information I got from them was that there has been an improvement. So there is a direct correlation between what we did and the results, we got. Mind you, as I talk to you now, Tamale is going through crisis.
Right.
Tamale is going through crisis of water. So what I did was that I mortgaged my MP Common Fund for the provision of mechanized boreholes in all the areas in Tamale, and we have 25 mechanized boreholes in Tamale, and we did that within a year of me being in office. The Assembly awarded a contract, so anytime the Common Fund comes, they take, in fact, almost all to pay the contractor until we finish. I got the Qatari charity, and I want to use your medium to thank them so much.
Right.
They provided a very huge clinic, but I finished the clinic. I'm doing another clinic at Sakasaka. We are about starting. All the materials are on site. And again, I've gotten another organization which is giving me about 50-bedroom clinic within the Tamale Metro, and it's going to be cited.
So it appears for both of you there are interesting projects that you're overseeing
but let me
in your constituencies. Mutala, we can't spend all the time talking about your constituency. Final point in 30 seconds.
I'm making the final point.
Right.
I have realized that in the northern part of the country, when medical doctors are sent there, they feel comfortable to be in Tamale and in the big towns. But when they are sent to rural areas, they find it extremely difficult. And your station, has reported several cases where you find clinics and health centers in some districts in the northern part of the country that doctors are unwilling to go there because of perhaps the conditions in those areas. So I thought it wise to see how we could assist to train medical doctors and whose education are fully funded by myself.
Right.
Last year we paid for 10 medical science students. Then in their second year we paid for them and paid for another fresh 10 medical science students. So we have 20 medical science students. Next year, by unless grace, it will be 30. Next 2 years, it will be 40. So we're hoping that by the next 3 years, we'll have 50 medical science students. When they finish and they are posted to some of these rural areas, I believe that they would understand. But I can't conclude without talking about Ramadan. We have just distributed.
Mutala,
it's important. It's very, very important. And I know that my colleague, even coincidentally, there are Muslims there. This is a global, Islamic obligatory, that many people do. And interestingly, all the religions of the book, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, all have fasting, in the scripture. The thing about Islam is that we have a whole month of compulsory fasting, as indicated in the Holy Quran. Quran. And if you read Quran chapter 2, verse 183, Allah says that, and I quote, Ya ayyuhal lazina amanu kutiba alaykum as-siyam kama kutiba ala lazina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. That fasting is prescribed to you as it was prescribed to those before you, so that you may attain faith. So it means that Judaism, Christianity, fasting was prescribed to them. And you are expected to go through certain rituals to deny yourself food and water from dawn to dusk, so that you may attain piety and you may understand that some people live in perpetual fasting. They don't have food to eat. You may be charitable, and you abstain from hearing anything that ought not to be heard, profanity, speaking profanity, engaging in things that are profanity. And you are expected that as you learn that practice within a month, after the month, you should be able to continue with such values. And I think that it's important that we reiterate things. And also to live, cohabit with your neighbors. The Allah didn't say with Muslims, with your neighbors, those you live with, that you should extend your charity and mercy to them. So when you are giving charity, it is not just give to Muslims, you give to those who are in need. Allah didn't say give to people who belong to the same religion with you, but those who are in need. So you can have someone who is profoundly in need, a Christian or even a traditionalist. Once the person is in need, you are encouraged to extend the blessings of Allah to you, so that you understand that some people go through those challenges. And Allah says that He's the only person who knows the reward of fasting.
Right.
If someone fasts and goes to the room to drink water,
right,
it's only Allah who knows. So I want to use this opportunity to wish all Muslims across the globe Ramadan Mubarak.
All right. So thank you, gentlemen, for letting me know what you've been up to in your constituencies and, of course, on the religious end as well. But I'll come back to you, Collins. And my very first question would have to do with the minority and how they've been reacting in Parliament to some of the proposals that we've put before the House. First of all, we have the nominees for, the ministerial and deputy ministerial nominees. And then there is the growth and sustainability bill, the excise duty bill. I'm talking about those three levies and taxes that have been tabled in Parliament. Generally, when you look at the reaction of the minority, filibustering apparently has come in. Are they being unnecessarily political? Because that has been the tenor or the tone that the Deputy Majority Leader, Alexander Afenyo-Markin, Joseph Osei-Wusu, among others, seem to be painting. Is that the picture you get, even before we get into the details of what happened?
No, first of all, let me also say happy Ramadan to my Muslim brothers, and to tell my brother Mutara that I am also challenged. And so
you're also what?
I'm challenged. So I'm also waiting. I'm waiting for him. I'm waiting on him.
I see.
Do the needful. But this is politics. Sometimes we go to Parliament and certain decisions are political decisions. If you recall, immediately the president nominated the ministers. There was an official letter from the NDC party instructing its members to toe a certain line. And so probably it is on the basis of that my senior colleagues that you mentioned, have said those things. But let me put it on record that when you come to Parliament, about 70 to 80% of all that we do is on consensus. And on that basis, I would like to thank our colleagues, the minority, for on many occasions agreeing with government on government policy and government business that comes to the floor. But of course, as I said, a few of the issues tend to be quite political, and this is not the first time we are having such a political stance. My party, the MPP, some time back also took some political decisions, and it's quite normal with political or parliamentary business. Their reasons are that they feel the government is bloated, they feel the government is huge, and that on the basis of which, considering the current economic condition, they felt that the president should rather be reducing his ministers instead of adding to it. But if you recall, or if you observe, I'm not too sure if what we have there is an addition. Some are just replacement and some movements along the lines. But for Mr. Obi Amwa, who is being elevated from the position of a deputy minister of local government into a minister of state at the same ministry. Nothing more has changed. The Dr. Amin Anta is going to replace our very good brother who resigned when the issue of Anas came up at the finance ministry. Stephen Amwa, my very good friend, is also moving to the trade ministry as a deputy minister. And then the other deputy minister who used to be at trade has been moved to the Ministry of Energy. The rest are Asamoah Boateng, who is replacing our colleague who we all know is not feeling too well at the Ministry of Chieftaincy. And then who else? And then, the Ministry of Agriculture, who, as you know, the former minister resigned to pursue another political agenda. And then we have the Trade Ministry, whose erstwhile minister also is leaving to pursue a certain agenda. So these are the issues, and so I don't think there is an addition to it in any case. But
I do not think the conversation is whether we're adding on or not in any portfolio. I think the conversation has to do with whether these people qualify, so to speak, which is why the minority has said that they are not giving their blessing to this. That has been the bone of contention. Can we focus on that?
I'm not too sure if the minority's point is that the people who have been nominated are not...
They have definitely had their concerns with some of these nominees, haven't they?
I'm not... That's what I'm saying. I'm not too sure their concern really is about the competence of these nominees. We all watch the vetting process. I'm not too sure if anybody will say that Honorable Brian the Champion did not exhibit a high level of intelligence. I'm not too sure anybody will say so.
Take K.T. Hammond, for example. It has been said that he came in a jocular mode, you know, thinking, as always, laughing with colleagues and all of that, that he may not have taken the exercise as seriously as he ought to. It's not to say that he may not entirely be credible or fit for the position, but based on what happened that day, some have said that he didn't cut it. He didn't make the cut. I mean, how do you respond to that?
I disagree with that. I think K.T. Hammond is one of the most experienced legislators we have in this country. Don't forget that K.T. Hammond was one of the longest-serving deputy ministers under President Kufuor. Currently, I think if you take out Chairman Sabonsu, he's one of the longest-serving members of Parliament, very experienced lawyer. He's been in the trenches for a very long time. As a party person, he's been with the party for a very long time. I don't think anybody can doubt K.T. Hammond's ability as an individual. Of course, everybody knows K.T. Hammond's attitude sometimes, and the way sometimes he creates an atmosphere that makes everybody feels comfortable. Of course, people will have issues with that, but I don't think his performance on the day warrants anybody to say that K.T. Hammond is not fit for purpose. I don't think so. I don't agree with that point at all. I think K.T. Hammond is one of the most experienced hands we have in this country. He's been there before. He's been in government before. And at the time when he was being vetted, he spoke very, very highly of the role he played, even towards the discovery of our first oil. And so I'm not too sure if anybody can, on the basis of K.T.'s jovial attitude, can then conclude comfortably that Mr. K.T. Hammond is not fit for purpose. Stephen Amwa, as far back as 2003, when I was at the university, Dr. Stephen Amwa used to come to my school, TESCON, as one of the resource persons. Academically, he's one of the few people who has a PhD in actuarial science. There's no single week that we don't hear of Stephen Amwa's articulation.
Okay, so Collins, I don't think we have to, pardon my interjection, I don't think we have to belabor the point about their credentials. I think we already know those. We don't have to go through all of them. But from where you sit, it is clear that you feel these people qualify, yet they've still not been passed, so to speak, by the House of Parliament. And we'll get into the processes and the different things that happened, culminating in, as of yesterday evening, still not getting an approval. But let me find out from you, Murtala, because of the point that Collins made. Do you feel that these nominees, or at least some of them, are in fact competent and ought to be passed? What is the positioning of the minority? And if not, based on what exactly do you think they should not be allowed to get into the portfolios or the positions that they've been nominated for?
Well, first and foremost, the NDC position resonates, I believe, with you, the one who is interviewing us. The position resonates with the position taken by your station, the multimedia group. The position resonates with the CDD. The position of NDC resonates with even IEA, interestingly. The position resonates with Professor Bucking and all the professors and scientists, those you have interviewed on your program.
I don't know whether I heard you right, say that your position as the minority resonates with that of the multimedia group. We don't have any position on this.
I'll come to that. So just let me finish. Our position resonates with the multimedia group, including you yourself. Our position resonates with Imani. Our position resonates with majority of the people of this country, the people that your journalists have actually interviewed on the street. Our position resonates with that of the IMF, resonates with even China.
Murtala, once more, I'll encourage you, pardon me, I'll encourage you to speak up a little. When it comes to you, I struggle. I'm struggling to hear you from afar. Please.
Okay, so what I'm saying is that, is it okay?
It's better.
What I'm saying is that the NDC position on the matter of this ministerial nominees resonates with you, the multimedia group. That same position resonates with the CDD, Imani, resonates with the embassies and the countries who have their representatives here as ambassadors. The position resonates with the World Bank, the IMF. And I believe that in the conscience of my good friend who is speaking on the other side, the position resonates with him. What is the NDC position? The NDC position is that the size of government is too big. And multimedia's position is that government must reduce the size. I have had engagement with you on air, and you agreed with me that government ought to do something about the size. The CDD thinks that the government size is big. The Imani thinks that government must reduce the ministers. In fact, the IMF and the World Bank, the people we have gone to begging for money, have all indeed indicated that we need to reduce the size of government. The ordinary Ghanaians that your reporters interviewed on the streets of Accra have all agreed, majority of them, that government must reduce the size. So there isn't any NDC position. It is Ghanaian's position. And if anybody thinks that the position of all these groups that I have mentioned is not representative enough to be called a Ghanaian position, then I don't know what can be described as a Ghanaian position. My brother in his response said that if you look at it strictly, there hasn't been an addition. Yet he talked about Honorable O.B. Amwa. So he should have just said that except Honorable O.B. Amwa's addition. In any case, when you have Ministry of Fisheries and Ministry of Agri, the NDs had the same Ministry of Agri and Fisheries under one ministry. When you have Ministry of Fisheries and Agri, and by dint of the Minister for Agri wanting to become president, because he has seen that Nanado, with all his incompetence, has become president, so he can also become president. There was a creation of a natural, vacuum. You could have added the Minister of Agri, the Minister of Fisheries, because it has been run that way in this country before. Now, we talked about the Minister of Trade. Did I hear my brother say that, if you look at Honorable Speaker, that he was, Stephen Amwa, he was only, the other deputy minister was moved, and then he became a minister, and he doesn't describe that as an addition. Under the Ministry of Trade, I had the opportunity to have been said, privileged opportunity as a deputy minister. Ministry of Trade doesn't need more than 2 deputy ministers. The ministry is divided into 2.
Right.
Trade and industry.
Right.
There is even a conflict at the ministry as we talk. Because what happens is that one of the deputies handles trade and one handles industry. Now you had 3 deputies there. And there was a conflict. Now, you had a minister who decided to go and run as a president because he thinks that Nanado has run, so he can also run some. Now, why didn't the president move one of the deputy ministers to be the minister so that you leave that minister with 2 deputy ministers? Now, you have elevated one of the deputies and you appointed someone to come there, and my friend says that that is not an addition. Then what is an addition? Again, look at Ministry of Ministry of Transport. It's different from Ministry of what's the name? Port and Harbour. We have always had transport, port and harbour under one ministry. This is the only president in our history who has run the biggest government ever. Now, even with the reduction, the so-called reductions that have been done, now you have regional ministers without deputy ministers. We have 86 ministers. 86. Remember when this president came to office in 2017?
So again, I'll say to you what I said to Collins. You seem to be rehashing some of the matters that we already know. So we're aware of these. And so these are the bases on which, or for which reason.
I'm not just rehashing. I'm pointing out
I mean,
the misinformation that he's trying to give, giving the impression that there hasn't been an addition. And I'm saying that if the IMF and the World Bank and others and everybody is saying that reduce the size, and we never had the courage to do so, naturally you have 2 ministers who have resigned. You could have just realigned, shift some of the deputy ministers to those ministries, and that would have been enough.
But I think the point Collins was making was that these are mere replacements. These are mere replacements, at least for those specific ministries.
No, there was an opportunity to reduce it in sync with the concerns expressed by the World Bank, the IMF, and people like you and myself, and the people of this country. So there was an opportunity because we knew that the president didn't have the courage to reduce the size of his government. He could not have, bring the joint.
Let me ask you a pointed question, Murtala. Do you have any concerns in terms of the qualification of these nominees? Do you feel any of them, just make it very brief for me, do you feel any of them is not qualified?
I have the problem with the 2 individuals being sent to Minister of Trade. Look, nobody doubts the experience of Honorable K.T. Hammond. Nobody doubts that whatsoever. I have had the privilege, opportunity to have worked as a deputy minister for trade.
Right.
And to tell you the truth, it took me some time to be able to appreciate the complexities of the ministry. We are left with less than 2 years. Less than 2 years. And you are sending 2 individuals to the ministry who have no prior experience or knowledge about the Ministry of Trade. A very critical ministry. Mind you, a lot of the programs and policy interventions of this government are handled by the Ministry of Trade. 1B1F, Ministry of Trade. You know, Ghana Beyond Aid, Ministry of Trade. And you are sending 2 inexperienced in as far as trade and industries are concerned to that ministry. That will be a disaster. And in any case, 2 complex individuals. I have said, let's pray that Honorable K.T. Hammond and Honorable, what's the name, Amwa, don't engage in some blues there. I know them, very complex individuals, and I fathom how these 2 individuals are going to work together. So that is one problem. You talk about the Minister of Agri, and in the person of Brana Champong. It's a straight up moving someone there, but I thought that they could have moved one of the deputies to the ministry because with the experience that deputy would have accumulated, that would have been assurance of some stability. You are sending someone completely new to that area. It is going to be extremely difficult, considering the mess that have already been created by the...
Let me also bring in Professor Safo Kantanka. He is a lecturer at the University of Cape Coast Faculty of Arts, also a parliamentary affairs expert. You saw what happened on the floor of Parliament yesterday, the filibustering, as some members of the majority side have put it, the lack of numbers at a point, then the calls to proceed with a vote, the seconding, and then all of a sudden the abrupt end that we had yesterday, bidding the Speaker for a recess. That was granted, and then we never saw the session restored. Do tell me, what do you make of yesterday's happenings on the back of the question of the president's nominees? And what do you think? Is the House responding in the way that it ought to? Or is the minority being unnecessarily political, as some have put it?
Thank you very much, Benjamin. I've had a little bit of a problem with my internet access, so
Right.
it's been on and off. If at a point in time, because of I'll try to get back.
Sure.
Good. Well, you see, as usual, we have the political issues here. It's a huge political environment, especially when we are gearing towards next elections and all that. So I'm not so much surprised about the position of the minority. If you have followed politics over the years, when some of these things come up, there's also so much about political point scoring and what have you. So I'm not really surprised. All along, I had a feeling that the minority were making quite an important statement about the number of ministers and the fact that the president should reduce and all that, because it also comes on the back of statements from some civil society organizations saying that, well, the size of the government is so huge, and looking at the conditions we find ourselves in today, it would be prudent if the president could reduce the number of ministers. So I thought,
was that an opportunity missed?
Well, let me finish this statement and then we will come back there. So as I said, I thought they were making a very significant statement. Whether they succeeded or not, it was an important statement. Until yesterday, when I heard that there were conditions put across by the minority, you know, after when they went on recess, that we were told that they were putting forward some other conditions that, well, if they will compromise and accept the nominees, then the majority should also take a second look at the, what do you call it, the EC's document on the elections, the, what do you call it, the CI. And I was taken aback. So I started questioning the genuine intentions of the minority in terms of rejecting the ministers. Because, you see, if you genuinely support us, think that the ministers are too many and that the president should reduce the number, there is nothing about you giving other conditions. You must stand your ground. But if you begin to give other conditions, if the government or the majority accept that condition and they go by it, are you telling me that the number of ministers will reduce? So it raises questions about the stance of the minority. What it now tells me is that it's so much political rather than a genuine concern about the number of ministers and a genuine concern about looking at the purse, the public purse, and what have you. So that is my problem now. It is a huge problem for me now, looking at the political ramifications and looking at the fact that, of course, if you have ministries such as the Ministry of Agri, the Ministry of Industry, these are huge, important ministries. And so you need people who can do the job. And so we need to fill this position. And if it's all about making political capital out of that, then it's very unfortunate for me. As I said, initially I thought it was a significant statement. But per this twist, I feel a little bit disappointed that the minority are making political capital out of the whole situation, and it is not a genuine concern. That is my view for now.
So you, like you just said, you feel the minority is making a meal out of the situation to score political points. But why exactly would you say that? What exactly is the rhetoric that has got you thinking this way? Because they have made mention of the fact that they have made mention of the fact that we have too many ministers. The German, representative, ambassador in the country has reiterated that, comparing our country to his as a donor country to us. So what exactly is the point?
No, the point I'm making is that, I made reference to that about civil society organizations. It's not that kind of statement hasn't only come from, say, the minority. I made that statement.
Right.
That with the support of civil society organizations. And that I thought that that was a very important call, a very important statement. Until this came in, that now the minority are saying that, well, if you want us to compromise and accept your nominees, then you have to take a second look at the CI that has been brought by the Electoral Commission. This is where that is where my problem is.
Okay.
So it raises questions about the intentions of taking a stance that is so uncompromising, that has been uncompromising over the period, ever since the vetting was done. They've taken a strong stance. So what I'm saying is that that demand yesterday pushes me to think that I have a means to question their intentions about taking that kind of stance. Because if the EC, if the government goes ahead, or the majority go ahead to say that, yes, okay, we are going to take a second look at the CI, would that change the number of ministers? It won't. So if that takes place and you accept the nominees, then what are you telling me?
Okay, so two interesting things. I'm sure you followed when the Americans were trying to get a new Speaker of the House. Admittedly, the Democrats voted en bloc. They were all against the proposed Speaker from the Republican end. But in the end, all those who were opposed within the Republican caucus eventually had to pander. You spoke initially about, the fact that we need these ministers to be at post. Critical positions, trades and industry, agriculture, among others. That is in one breath. So don't you think that they are merely saying that, look, okay, at some point, we'll have to give in anyway. We can't remain inflexible and compromising throughout the process. And so we're going to have to yield at a point, but not without securing some political points?
Well, so that is the point I'm making. So you've made my point. The point I'm making is that, for me, if you believe in your principle, go by your principle.
Right. But is it realistic, politically speaking?
So
is it realistic?
It is. It is. So for me, when we are looking at it from as observers, then now we must be going back to rethink certain positions and saying that is a call genuine. So does it mean that if the minority were in authority, were in power, would they be doing the same thing? These are critical questions we should be asking. Because you see, you may not necessarily know what is on somebody's minds. By their words, we shall know them. So I am measuring the words spoken by these MPs about the conditions. Benjamin, I believe in one thing. Stand your grounds if you believe in your principles. But the moment you start loosening your principles based on certain demands, then I have every right to question your principle. And what it also tells me is that, so it looks like all this while, you are not actually interested in making us move forward, but are interested in the points we are going to get. If your points you are scoring, that is my position. So for example, all this while, for all this period, we don't have ministers in place for some of the for these ministries. What is the cost then? We can also go back there and measure that. But my position is that if you want to say that the president has to reduce the number, and that by your principles, by governance principles, you don't support that number of MPs, ministers, go by it, stand your ground, and move forward, and make sure that, yes, you vote as if you vote and the majority lose the vote, that's fair enough. Then I will know that, yes, you mean something. You stand by certain principles, and you wish that those principles will work all the time. That is when I will feel that, yes, you are fighting for the benefit and interest of the public. But when it becomes conditional, and that you are asking for certain
concessions, maybe
compromises, and therefore by those compromises you are going to also compromise. Are you also telling me that well, what is it about the CI? I'm not a lawyer. We follow the arguments and all that. Does it mean that what you are talking about in terms of the CI brought by the EC is not that important? Is it that you are only arguing about it and that you don't have a strong point against the CI? Because if you have a very strong point against the CI, you will continue to talk about it irrespective of the decision of the majority or decision of the government. You will continue. So, Benjamin, what I'm saying is that where are the principles guiding our behavior, our attitude, and our debates in terms of bills, in terms of the work of Parliament for the interests of Ghana?
Right.
That is where my problem is. And over the years, has been the argument some of us have been making. We don't seem to see serious principles playing out when it comes to parliamentary debates and when it comes to debating bills and when it comes to talking about issues of parliament and issues of government and issues of governance. That is my problem. We should begin to talk about principles, legal principles, moral principles, and if you are convinced by them, you stand by them and make sure that even if you lose a vote, even if you lose a debate, it will be on record that you ever stood for a certain principles that can stand the test of time. I believe in that, and that is how we can actually get going as a country. That is how we can get going as a parliament. You've
said a lot that would require responses from Murtala, but I'll get to him later. I want to bring in Collins as well. On the back of some of these comments that have been passed and the happenings yesterday in Parliament, I mean, a bit surprising because right when we were going to get into the real debate on the matter, that suspension was moved for and you never came back. What exactly can you share with us in terms of what happened when you, the members of Parliament, left the floor? What happened in these discussions with the minority?
Well, those discussions were held, as we put it, in conclave. I'm not too sure if it's appropriate for me to disclose discussion that were held.
I mean, I'm not saying give us a blow-by-blow account. I'm merely saying what was up for discussion.
But I would like to. I'll come to that. But I would like to make a few comments from the submission by my good friend.
So make that very brief so we can get to the
my very good friend Murtala, when he said that I had said that there's a deputy minister at the Trade Ministry who has been elevated. I never said so. All I said was that our good friend and senior brother Obi Amwa has been elevated from the as a deputy minister of local government to a minister of state. Now, the point I made was that what has happened was not an addition in terms of numbers, because if you realize, our colleague who was a deputy minister of trade was moved from deputy minister of trade to a deputy minister of energy. That's it. And then the one who was a deputy minister of energy was moved to the finance ministry as a minister of state to replace someone who had exited. And then this issue about numbers and the fact that Nanado's total ministers is bloated, is 86, and that the current economic conditions does not warrant that, I find that quite interesting. Because if he himself recall, Mr. Mahama, the ex-president, His Excellency John Mahama, had 85 ministers. At the time, we didn't have 16 regions. He had 85 ministers, and we didn't have 16 regions. This current government, Nanado's presently, has 86 ministers, including regional ministers of all the 16 regions.
Yes, but you've had over 100, almost knocking on 115 at a point in time.
I'm saying we are speaking now.
I mean, if you're going to reference the past, even when things have moved forward, then we should also reference that.
He's making an argument that the current number of 86, because of the economic condition, does not warrant that. And I'm saying that even currently, with 16 regions, we are 86. They didn't have 16 regions. They had 10 regions. But indeed, they still had 85. So, and of course, the principal stand of what he was talking about, that the CDD is saying same and everybody is saying same. If that was your stand, as the prof was talking about, that principle was defeated when you were prepared to negotiate that particular stand for something else. So that let's put that aside. Now, what happened yesterday? Yesterday, in our mind as majority, we were coming there to have a vote because already, as I told you earlier, the party, the NDC party, has issued a statement to the effect that they were not approving the ministers. So we knew, and of course, when the report from the appointment committee came, it was not a consensus report. It was a majority decision. What that meant was that at the committee level, not all of them agreed to the nominees. So clearly, there was a vote even at the committee level. So we were prepared to vote. It was at that particular moment during the...
You say you were prepared to vote. From what I gather, not all your members of parliament were available to you.
We had absolutely every member of parliament present, with the exception of Adjoa Safo, who I didn't see. All of us were present.
That is the point I'm making.
And I'm saying that, but still...
At a point, there were 2 of you who were not available.
No. What I know, based on what we know, is that there was 1 person who was not available, which is Adjoa Safo. Don't forget that on their side, Mr. Kwesi is still in court, so he does not come to parliament. So we knew numerically we were ahead. Now, when the motion was moved and was seconded, I realized the 2 leaders went outside to have a discussion. It was after the discussion that our chief whip then pleaded with the speaker to suspend sitting for 1 hour based on the discussion that had gone on between the 2 leaders, so that the 2 groups, the minority and the majority group, can have a caucus meeting and then speak to some few things. And so we had that discussion. It was a very, very fruitful discussion. And apparently, even the CI, there's been a lot of bipartisan discussion going on behind the scenes to fine-tune the terms of the CI to suit everybody. But apparently, they had not concluded on that. You know, it was at that point that the majority leader then said, okay, then let's adjourn till 6 p.m., hoping that by the time they arrive at 6 p.m., there would have been some consensus. Unfortunately, when we arrived at 6 p.m., it was clear that the negotiation didn't end as was expected. And so our expectation was that immediately after the debate, we're going to vote. But unfortunately, the speaker also reported that when he gave us 1 hour, nobody came back to him to tell him that we have extended the 1 hour to almost 3 to 4 hours.
Right.
And he has been sitting there since morning, and of course, he's a human being. And so he decided that no, let's have the debate, and that he was going to put the question today. So that's where we are. And so today, we are just hoping that he puts the question. Of course, our side, we are going to support the motion. If our brothers from the other side, based on all indications, are going to reject the motion, then we move to the next step, which will be to put it to a vote.
And that vote would, I mean, if a voice vote doesn't carry, then you would have to do a physical vote, right?
Absolutely. I mean, normally the voice vote comes, the speaker decides on the voice where, based on his hearing, if he thinks the nays have it, the ayes have it, that's fine. On the basis of that, anybody can challenge the speaker's decision, which is the process. And once the speaker's decision is challenged, then we move on to a vote.
And this is going to be a secret vote, secret ballot?
I suspect so, yes, I suspect so. I think my brother can clarify that. But I suspect so because I remember during Kojo Opon Koma's time, when we had the vote, it was a secret vote.
And that is where some people have expressed fear that, I mean, things could go anyway. I mean, we know about what happened at the dawn of this 8th parliament in terms of the election of the speaker.
I understand perfectly. But the point is that it's the same way that people have fear on our side. It's the same way I'm sure my brother Mutala and his people also have some fear. Because some of them have very good relationship with some of the nominees. So the point is that at that point, we would have done our part as a parliament.
From your side,
through the process.
From your side of the House, are you willing to budge, to make some concessions to the minority end in order to push this through? Because that has also come to the fore. I mean, looking at the discussions you've had so far, is there a willingness to budge, to give some ground?
With consensus, I just told you.
No, I said make concessions.
The point is, which concessions are they talking about? Concession as to...
for example, in respect of the CI.
The point I'm making is that even the CI, there's a bipartisan group that is working on it to fine-tune it, which includes members from their side and our side. And the meeting we had, it was clear to me, and I'm sure to everybody who was present, that there seems to be some consensus on where we want the bill or we want the CI, the tone of the CI is clear that we have a consensus. We have a consensus. But of course, as I said, we don't dictate to the Electoral Commission. We don't. We can only make input into the CI. You get the point I'm making. So, but from the discussion, it was clear to me that the input that we want to, as Parliament, wants to make into the CI, there was a consensus between the two political parties.
All right. Let me come to Murtala. So, Prof said, "By their fruit you shall know them," quoting the Bible, referencing your end, in Parliament, saying that you are shifting the goalposts, you are not sticking to your position, and he finds that problematic. Why are you willing to bend now on the issue of the CI so as to approve these ministers if, per your conscience as a minority, you felt it wasn't the right way to go?
I hope you give me enough time to respond to
we don't, unfortunately, we don't have that much time.
That
you can have about 2 minutes.
No, that won't be fair because...
Murtala, I am dealing with this. Unfortunately, we are constrained. We have time limits.
Is Prof still online?
So use the time we have.
I hope Prof is still online.
Prof, you're still with us, right?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, Prof is listening to you. Please go ahead.
I have listened to outrageous claims made, unfortunately, by Prof and my good friend. And with all due respect, Prof, whoever told you that we were negotiating to approve the ministers for the purposes of those proposed amendments, I lied to you. And I urge you not to make this statement anywhere again. Because you are an academic, and I have so much respect for academic and you, and therefore, for you to make that claim, I thought you would have gotten your information from the right
No,
source.
let me answer that question. Let me answer that question.
Yes.
Go and listen to JoyNews this morning.
Who said that on JoyNews?
I said JoyNews. Joy has a reporter.
Did JoyNews say that NDC wanted to know?
Please. We are on Joy.
Prof, did JoyNews say that NDC wanted to negotiate?
The Joy reporter in Parliament.
Prof, I listened to you. I'm saying that.
News,
did JoyNews say? Prof,
I'm giving you the source.
Please.
So I am not.
Prof, can I finish?
All right, to settle this. Hold for me, Murtala. Hold for me. Just hold for me. Prof, hold for me. We have our parliamentary correspondent, Kweku Asante, here with us. Kweku, I know you can hear me. Tell me, what exactly, is there anyone from the minority who made this clear statement that they were willing to bend on the point of the CI? Clarify for us.
So, Benjamin, our understanding is that when the two caucuses went into the joint caucus meeting, a certain proposition was made by the majority side to the minority that we are willing to make this offer so that the minority can soften their stance on some of the key issues that have come up. The minority made it clear at the time that that was not something that they were going to look at. Of course, this was an offer that was made from the majority side, which the Honorable Member of Parliament for the NPP, Fidel Kwabre, has actually alluded to. So it was sort of a trade-off to say, okay, we are willing to shift our stance on the controversial CI, come and meet you halfway on some of the proposals you have made, particularly as regards to the Electoral Commission's proposal to make the Ghana card the sole identity document. Indeed, our sources tell us that there was even an offer to send an undertaking, because when the EC comes and lay the CI, then we can all join hands and do what we want to do. But the minority at the time did not accept that, and so that is the fact. They did not accept that. They wanted to do that. They did not agree, and that is why when the matters came back to the floor, there was no consensus. The minority stuck to their guns and then proceeded to say that if the vote happened, they were going to reject it onto the Speaker of Parliament agenda house to today.
So it was the majority that rather, made the proposal on the CI.
Our understanding is that the majority made that offer to the minority as part of getting them to back them on some of the key measures that are currently before the House.
Okay. So, Prof, I think there's clarity on the matter now.
Well, if that is the case, then I also feel quite disappointed on the part of the majority. Because from what I gathered, that to trade off by means of compromising on a certain important document, and for me, the CI is more important than even the appointment of these ministers. So to tell me that you want to compromise on your stance so that the minority will accept the nominees, that's very disappointing. Okay. Are you telling the minority that then there's a problem with the CI?
Okay. Thank you, Prof. So right after this,
so that is why I was talking about principles.
Okay.
We must be seen to be acting on the basis of principles.
Right. Principles. Let's wind down on the conversation, gentlemen. In just about 2 minutes, we'll wind down. Murtala, you were on the floor. You were speaking before, so I'll give you that final bite.
I think the Prof owes the NDC an apology on your program because he made those conclusive statements.
Murtala, I think clarity has been brought to bear.
If you don't want me to be on the program, tell me. I have the right to respond to allegations that were outrageously made against me as a member of parliament from the minority caucus and the entire NDC. We never negotiated. And for the avoidance of doubt, both parties have been working on the CI. The decision we took yesterday has nothing to do with the appointment of the minister. All that we have done, both the NDC and the MPP, look at the CI brought by the EC. And you remember, Honorable Kennedy Japan even sat on a TV and said he was against the CI in the form that it came with. So we all agree that, look, the guarantor system ought to be added. There were some amendments that we all agreed. And it was then subsequently submitted to the EC through the Minister for Parliamentary Affairs, in this case, the majority leader. And he reported to us that the EC said no. The EC doesn't have that absolute authority. If he brings and Parliament refuses to take it, there won't be any amended CI. So when Prof said that he was disappointed in the NDC for negotiating, that is my problem. Mind you, 3 businesses were brought to Parliament. 1, the approval of the Supreme Court judges' nominees, the nominees for the Supreme Court. 2, the CI and the ministers. All the discussions we have had has nothing, in fact, the appointment of the ministers never came up.
Right.
Never.
Right.
So for someone to say that he is disappointed in us because we agreed to negotiate, I don't know which other platform those statements. That is
he premised it on something he had heard.
No, he said he was disappointed in us. And I have so much respect for him. Someone misled him. And he was misled.
Murtala.
He never negotiated.
Right.
He never negotiated.
And that point has been clarified by our parliamentary correspondent. Unfortunately, gentlemen, this is how we'll have to cap off the conversation. But it's been interesting having all 3 of you. Of course, Murtala Mohammed, you just heard, a member of parliament for Tamale Central, also joining the conversation. We had Collins Adumakumens, a member of parliament, Ifija Kwabre North, together with Professor Kwabena Safo Kantanka, parliamentary affairs expert, lecturer at the UCC Faculty of Arts. Well, when we return from the break, we'll be taking you to the Golden Star Waza Resources case or mining case. And it has to do with that recent incident there. The facility has been shut down per the owners for 3 months, within which time some work will be done. That conversation coming your way next on the AM show. Okay, so we don't usually do this, but the 2 members of parliament on board do want to have a final bite. So before we segue into that next conversation, let's have our 2 members of parliament deliver their final thoughts, gentlemen. I'm going to give you a minute each. Collins, can you do with a minute?
Yeah, hello.
Yes, can you do with a minute? I hope so.
Yeah, but first of all, I am completely surprised at the report by a reporter from Parliament saying that the majority initiated a compromise position. It's not true. That never happened. We did not go to the NDC to negotiate with them. We did not. That is not true. And Murtala, in his
Are you sure it's not something you are not privy to?
It is. I was there. I was in Parliament.
If the leadership of the majority engaged in any such thing, would you know?
That we did not. So if the the leadership engaged.
No, I'm putting a question to you that if your leadership in Parliament had done that on your blind side, would you know?
It is not true that the MPP as a party made overtures to the NDC to negotiate a certain position. That's not what happened. And as Mutala was saying, this issue about the CI, the two political parties have been working on it behind the scenes even before yesterday. So we did not come to the table to say we are prepared to soften our stance on the CI in order for them to allow our ministers to be passed. We never said so. And I thought it was important that I make this point. We never said so. And for the prof to say that he's disappointed in the MPP, that is not true. We never did so. Say so.
Okay, so both of you taking exception to what he said. Thank you for your final comments. Let me go to Murtala.
Well, he claimed that he never said so, but when Prof made that misleading statement, he said that the position of the NDC in the matter of the CI and the minister we've been defeated. When he knew in the heart of his heart there was no such negotiation. On the CI issue, both parties have been discussing it, and that's why I made reference to the position of Kennedy Ajapong. Now, the NDC, what the discussions that went on between the NDC and the NPP had to do with some of this, taxes. And you know that those taxes are the IMF bailout are contingent on those taxes. So when we had discussion, we said, look, we don't have any problem. We will not want to frustrate government for the purposes of salvaging the economy of this country. So the discussions that the NDC and the NPP had on the matter of the CI and also the levy for the reasons that we have, and also the judges, had nothing to do with the Ministerial. And in fact, I don't want to put out what happened at the joint caucus. But the majority leader, when he spoke, he hinted very clearly that the decisions were taken had nothing to do with
so that is clear. That is clear. Yeah. Gentlemen, thank you so much for clarifying, clearing the air. Prof, are you still with us? Hello, Prof? Prof, so I can hear you laughing in the background. I think it's only fair, since I've given them a minute each, to also take your concluding comments, because you're getting fire from both ends. What's your conclusion?
That makes it very important for me. So what it means is that even the two of them don't agree on what happened in that meeting.
Right.
So that actually supports the point I'm making, and that when we have to negotiate some of these things this way, then it sends a certain signal about our parliament. And of course, Benjamin, when Mutala talks about the kinds of expressions he used and all that, you remember when I started the argument, I said I thought they were making a very significant statement about their stance that the president has to reduce the number of ministers. Didn't I say that?
Right. And
then I went ahead to say that this is what I heard. And if that was the case, it was very unfortunate.
Right.
So I'm wondering why he will actually, if a question, to the extent of even trying to question my level of argument and that kind of thing. When the two of you, even who were at the meeting in Parliament, cannot even agree on who said what, who started the negotiations, and all that. So for me, let us look at the issues that will adhere to the benefit of this country. And forget about it. You see, these are some of the things that sometimes drive away people from commenting on political issues in Ghana and all that. We must come to a compromise position that we need to look at issues that affect us positively and all that. And this is argument about ministerial appointments, and I'll make this point.
Right. So just to wrap on that.
During President Kufuor's time, I remember vividly that the former majority leader, Haruna Idrusu, proposed the 60 ministers. That was somewhere President Kufuor's second term or so. But when the NDC came back to power in 2009, what number did we see? So for me, I get the position that when the tables turn, people raise questions about the numbers of ministers. And so I began to question the genuine intentions about questioning the numbers. When we get the opportunity, we don't do what we preach. I take mostly from civil society organizations when they are making such calls. And such calls have come over the years from civil society organizations. And that is why some of us, at a point in time, do support such calls by the huge numbers of ministers and all that.
Prof, thank you so much. Thank you, gentlemen. It's been a feisty conversation, and I've been here smiling a bit because of the fire being traded. But interesting all the same. We'll now take a breather. And when we return after taking some Awake Purified Drinking Water, Bernice will be telling you a lot more about that. We'll also be looking at the Golden Star Wassa mine. What happened there, the implications, and why this should never happen again. Stay with us.